The story begins with a high school girl named Seulgi, who had absolutely no interest in mathematics, and for that very reason, her math skills were painfully weak. When her teacher called her to the board to solve a question, she completely failed to do so. The teacher warned her sternly, reminding her that the SAT exam was just around the corner, and if she failed, her life would be ruined. Seulgi, however, was far more focused on the leaking bucket in her classroom, watching water drip steadily from it, and noticing that the moment the bucket filled up, the class bell would ring, which oddly felt more predictable than her math grades. At home, Seulgi's mother was deeply worried about her poor performance in mathematics. She was watching a historical drama on television, something Seulgi found unbearably boring. Seulgi casually remarked that if she ever went back to ancient times, she would make sure mathematics was banned altogether, a thought that felt heroic to her and terrifying to the education system. Late at night, Seulgi went to meet her friend, who also warned her that failing this test would destroy her future. Her friend was preparing so intensely that stress had given her frequent nosebleeds, while Seulgi had never experienced one in her life simply because she had never taken any exam seriously enough to earn one. The exam day finally arrived. Seulgi's mother was unusually cheerful and, in her excitement, packed an excessive amount of food into Seulgi's bag. But Seulgi had already packed a big amount of snacks for her. Instead of comfort, this made Seulgi feel even worse. She tried desperately to study on the bus but could not understand a single word. In her confusion, she stepped off the bus and accidentally left her umbrella behind. As rain poured down, she walked back toward the exam center, soaking wet. Outside, she saw many students who looked excited and confident about the exams. Seulgi, however, could not gather the courage to enter and ran away in fear. Her friend sent her multiple messages, but Seulgi did not reply to any of them. Sitting alone on a bench, she prayed to simply disappear. Suddenly, she heard the sound of drums and followed it to a water-filled pit from which the sound was coming. Inside the water, she saw a place from Joseon era, a historical time period in Korea where people were praying desperately for rain, as it had not rained there for 3 years. The king had no interest in such rain-summoning rituals, as he did not believe in blind faith. As Seulgi stepped closer to the pit, her foot kept sinking deeper than expected. The moment this happened, dark clouds gathered over Joseon. Completely confused and wanting to end everything, Seulgi jumped into the pit. A child saw her do this, and in the next moment, Seulgi found herself inside Joseon, surrounded by people praying. Seeing everyone dressed in traditional attire, she felt as if she had accidentally walked onto the set of a historical drama shoot. The king asked whether she was a human or a goblin. Seulgi replied that she was a gosam. That means a high school student in Korea, but in ancient times, gosam referred to an eunuch, a man whose testicles have been removed. So the king assumed she was literally an eunuch. The king sent her to a man who looked exactly like her math teacher. Confused and scared, Seulgi asked where she had ended up. At that moment, soldiers pointed their swords at her. She assumed they were fake props, but when she touched one, she realized they were real, and it finally dawned on her that no filming was happening here. The people believed Seulgi had been sent by the gods to bring rain. Seulgi remembered seeing a similar plot in the historical drama her mother watched and, to save her life, began acting along. When everyone bowed, she seized the moment and ran away. While escaping, she reached a clothing room, disguised herself in men's clothing, and slipped out. Meanwhile, the king, who had no faith in rituals, instructed his scholars to use mathematical or scientific formulas to solve the drought problem. The minister opposed this strongly, claiming that using mathematics went against their history. He believed the ancestors were angry because the king had not produced an heir, and that was why there was no rain. On the other side, the queen was eating excessively, but the moment her father, the minister, arrived, she hid all the food. The minister insisted that she must produce an heir and advised her to speak to the king, as this could elevate his own political position as well. As Seulgi ran around searching for her mobile phone, she overheard that the king had asked his scholars to solve the Pythagorean theorem. They had been struggling for days because mathematics at that time was not well developed. Just then, the royal bodyguard arrived and captured Seulgi. Seulgi learned that it had not rained in Joseon for 3 years, and it finally hit her that she had time traveled. she realized she could only return to her own time once it rained, because only then would the pit reappear for her to go back through. The king did not believe that Seolgi had come at the god's command, but her strange clothes made him suspect she was from another world. He examined her phone, which had a rain wallpaper, and asked how rain existed inside it. Seolgi tried explaining that she was from the future, but the king understood nothing. When the phone accidentally took a photo, the king panicked and ordered the bodyguard to cut off her hand. Terrified, Seolgi hurriedly claimed she possessed great knowledge, saying she knew history and many other things. When the king remained unconvinced, she shouted that she was a mathematician. The king ordered her to solve a math problem. At that time, they did not have their own alphabet, and everything was written using Chinese characters. Seolgi could not read the text, but recognized the figures and realized it was the Pythagorean theorem. She solved it effortlessly because it was just the work of the left hand, even for dumb Asian schoolgirl. The king was astonished and revealed that his scholars had been trying to solve it for 3 days without success. He decided that Seolgi would teach him mathematics and rewarded her with gold coins. He promised that once it rained, she would be allowed to leave, and if she taught him well, she would not be punished. Seolgi was sent to stay at King's right-hand's own house, where he kept gold coins as rent. He gave her a small vessel for drinking water, which Seolgi recognized from her history books as a rain-measuring tool, but An insisted it was only for drinking water. When Seolgi entered the house, a child from the adjacent room called her elder sister. The next day at the palace, she discovered that everyone believed she was an eunuch, and most people also assumed she was a boy. Seolgi decided that living there disguised as a boy would be the safest option for survival. The king now took Seolgi along with him because he wanted to study under her guidance. He gradually realized that every country in the world had its own distinct characters and alphabets, while his kingdom had none of its own and relied entirely on the Chinese language for writing. Seolgi told him that she would teach him properly and then take a test, and if he failed, his punishment would be a simple finger flick, since that was the harshest penalty she could possibly give a king without risking her own execution. The king noticed something unusual about her from the very beginning. Seolgi showed absolutely no fear of him and spoke while looking straight into his eyes. She worked relentlessly to teach him, so much so that every waking moment she wished for rain to finally arrive so she could escape from there. On top of that, she had to live disguised as an eunuch, and An's cooking was so unpleasant that it made her miss instant food with the emotional intensity of a breakup. Because of this, she opened her bag to take out something edible, only to realize that one food item was missing. The king had taken it out, assuming it was a bomb, and promptly threw it far away. Whenever he got the chance, the king experimented with Seolgi's belongings, while simultaneously studying with a level of focus that suggested he was more scared of failing her test than ruling an entire kingdom. The next day, Seolgi conducted the king's test. Each time he gave a wrong answer, she flicked him, and every flick resulted in swords being pointed at her neck. The king was furious, but suppressed his anger because he genuinely wanted to learn. When he answered incorrectly a second time, she flicked him again, and on the third wrong answer, the king nearly ordered her hand to be cut off in rage. At that exact moment, the queen arrived, whose face looked identical to Seolgi's friend. The queen remarked that she had never seen Seolgi before and assumed she must be new. As she left, she mocked An for becoming the king's obedient dog, to which An immediately replied that she was no different. In the following scene, the king deliberately teased Seolgi by eating in front of her. In response, she pulled out a packet of noodles from her bag and ate it right in front of him, then generously shared some with him. The king loved the taste, but later his stomach got upset. He immediately concluded that Seolgi was his enemy who had poisoned him on purpose, but Seolgi calmly explained the scientific reason behind it, describing the human body in detail, including where the heart and stomach were located. The king still remained unconvinced. Seolgi then explained that the organ which beats is called the heart. The king replied that he could not hear any sound. Seolgi told him that when he likes someone, his heart beats loudly. Hearing this, the king decided that Seolgi clearly knew far too much about science to be ignored and took her to the doctors. There, she explained the functions of various body parts, many of which none of them had ever heard of. The next day, the king gathered extensive information from Seolgi about plants as well. While Seulgi attempted to take selfies, the king was initially terrified, but later happily posed for photos himself, as if royal dignity had officially resigned for the day. From a distance, the queen watched everything silently. Many of the king's problems were being solved because of Seulgi, which made him extremely pleased. He distributed oranges to everyone in the palace, including one to Seulgi, which she immediately ate and threw away. The king was shocked and asked why she had eaten it so quickly, explaining that one orange was meant to be consumed over 4 days and was extremely rare. Only then did Seulgi realize how valuable a single orange was in that era. The king then asked Seulgi to prove a mathematical question she had given him. Seulgi disliked proofs intensely and refused. As punishment, the king made her play soccer. He repeatedly ordered her to fetch the ball until she was exhausted. Seulgi complained that who even plays soccer at night? The king replied that kings do not casually play games whenever they want, and that he had not run in a very long time. Hearing this, Seulgi made him run as well. After running, the king admitted that just as Seulgi had said, he could hear his heart beating loudly for the first time in years. Later, the king decided to go out in disguise and asked Seulgi to come along. While the king changed his appearance, Seulgi waited outside, carving a face into the same orange. As time passed, she grew sleepy, and An told her to go inside because it was very cold outside. Meanwhile, the minister still wants the heir, mixed something into the king's food that would make him feel attracted to the queen. He informed the queen and sent her to the king. However, the king ended up feeding that food to Seulgi instead. He then explained to her that he was a king and had not found time to go outside that day. When the general announced the queen's arrival, the king quickly hid Seulgi. The queen assumed the medicine had worked on the king, but instead it affected Seulgi. The queen told the king that she felt very lonely, to which the king replied that everyone in the palace felt lonely. At that moment, Seulgi's orange rolled in, followed by Seulgi herself, who looked completely unwell and collapsed onto the king. Seeing this, the queen became furious because Seulgi had ruined her entire plan. Although the queen left, the medicine's effect on Seulgi intensified. She started shouting loudly, and when the king tried to silence her, the queen could still hear everything from outside. Seulgi confessed that she had started liking the king, but would have to leave once it rained. The king also found himself drawn to her, but then remembered that she was an eunuch and forcefully restrained himself. When Seulgi regained consciousness, the king escorted her back. On the way, he explained that for the nation's development, he needed to learn mathematics and science, and Seulgi would help him with that. He then asked her to be his friend, which she accepted. As the king walked away, the same child who called Seulgi elder sister appeared, revealing that both Seulgi and the king were being watched. When the minister learned that Seulgi was ruining his plans and growing too close to the king, he deliberately accused her, claiming that her nighttime behavior had disturbed both the king and queen. To protect Seulgi, An presented the instrument to the king, hoping it would prove her innocence. The vessel that An had originally given Seulgi as a simple drinking bowl was now presented again, but this time it had been modified with Seulgi's help. It had been transformed into an instrument capable of measuring rainfall. Seeing this, the king was genuinely delighted. He declared that Seulgi should be kept close because she was extraordinarily intelligent, and with her help they could understand how to store rainwater once it arrived, ensuring that the kingdom would never face water shortages again. The minister immediately objected, stating that Seulgi must be tested further. He demanded that she also create an instrument capable of measuring time. Only then would they truly believe in her abilities. The king was confused, unsure how Seulgi could possibly complete all of this in such a short span. The minister coldly added that if she failed, she would be of no use and should be thrown out altogether. Seulgi overheard every word from behind and revealed it to An, who warned her that if she could not complete the tasks, they might even kill her. Desperate, Seulgi begged An for help. He admitted that he had helped her initially because he believed it would earn him the king's favor, but after much pleading, he finally agreed to assist her. Seulgi pulled out all her books and began studying relentlessly. When exhaustion overtook her, she fell asleep right there. The king quietly arrived and covered her to protect her from the cold. When Seulgi woke up, The king was gone, but he had left behind the same face carved into the orange that Seulgi had made earlier, which the king still carried with him. Seulgi studied so intensely that her nose began to bleed. The little child slept clutching Seulgi's jacket, and An noticed it carefully. While Seulgi continued working tirelessly, the king played soccer to ease his anxiety, knowing she had only until nightfall. If she failed to finish everything by then, she could be executed by morning. It was revealed that the king truly liked Seulgi and had even come out to go with her, but when he saw her walking away with An, he got jealous and chose not to stop her. By morning, Seulgi solved the problem successfully, and at that very moment, rain began to fall. The king immediately remembered Seulgi telling him that once it rained, she would leave. Seulgi rushed to the water pit, and as she stepped into it, the time travel portal reappeared. The king ran toward her desperately, but when he reached the spot, she was nowhere to be found. However, the problem had been solved. It was then revealed that Seulgi had not left yet, because she was still building the instrument to measure time. She explained that she had taken inspiration from the bucket in her classroom, which filled slowly, and the moment it filled completely, the bell rang. Seulgi confessed that she had never worked this hard in her life before and declared that she had finally proven she was not useless. She admitted that she was not actually a mathematician, and as the words left her mouth, she broke down in tears. The king listened silently and then pulled her into a hug. At that moment, Seulgi noticed that the rain was stopping and the time travel portal was closing. She let it happen. The king reminded her that she had said she would leave once it rained and told her she was free to go. Seulgi replied that she did not want to run away anymore. She confessed that she had fled to this place as well, and she did not want to keep running. Suddenly, An arrived and warned that Seulgi's life was in danger. The king sent Seulgi away with An. In a flashback, it was revealed that An had realized Seulgi was from the future after noticing her jacket and had told the minister everything. Seeing her as a threat, the minister ordered An to kill her, promising him a high-ranking position in the palace in return. The minister also informed the queen of this plan and had already discovered that Seulgi was a girl. While on the run with An, Seulgi stopped to drink water, and An suddenly pointed his sword at her. Meanwhile, the queen secretly entered the king's room and noticed how carefully he had preserved the orange, the same one she had earlier seen with Seulgi. She finally realized that the king had fallen in love with Seulgi. An stopped Seulgi from drinking the water, warning her about algae in it. Suddenly, Seulgi slipped, and An caught her. At that moment, he confirmed that she was a girl. He admitted that he had known for a long time, ever since his younger brother had called her elder sister. An promised not to reveal her secret to the king if Seulgi doubled his rent. Seulgi jokingly remarked that she had thought he was a useless man, but he turned out to be surprisingly decent. An explained that if he obeyed the minister, he would receive the 5th rank, but if he saved Seulgi's life, the king would reward him with the 4th rank. Meanwhile, in the palace, the language written on Seulgi's jacket was unknown to anyone. The minister informed the king that Seulgi was a threat and that he had already sent someone to kill her. Hearing this, the king rushed out to save her, with the queen running after him. Meanwhile, many men were chasing Seulgi and An, forcing An to place her on his horse and flee. The king had instructed An where to take Seulgi, telling her that she needed to run after time itself. They had no weapons, so Seulgi handed An her cutter. The king raced toward them, with the queen following close behind. An fought off the pursuers, using the cutter to knock them down one by one. Seulgi remembered the king's words about chasing time, and in that era, time was measured by the sun. She finally understood that the king meant she had to follow the sun itself. While fighting, when the queen saw An badly injured, she felt deeply upset. An, in turn, noticed that the queen's leg was hurt, so he lifted her and carried her away from there. Meanwhile, Seulgi kept following the sun and eventually reached a beach, where the king arrived. Without hesitation, the king walked straight up to Seulgi and kissed her. On the other side, An brought the queen to his house, where she noticed wooden birds placed carefully around the room. In a flashback, it is revealed that the queen herself had once made those birds for An. An was badly wounded and was bandaging himself when the queen stepped in to help him dress his injuries. Back at the palace, the king still struggled to believe that Seulgi had truly come from the future. To prove it, Seulgi showed him the sky on her phone. The king was completely baffled. unable to understand how the entire sky could possibly fit inside such a small object. Just then, the phone battery died, and the king remarked that things which last permanently were far better. He then wrote the word love on Seolgi's hand, something he had earlier seen written on her jacket. Seolgi responded that she felt the same, and only then realized that the king probably did not understand what the word actually meant. An had a deep love for music, and the queen suggested that he could join the music department, promising to speak to her father to make it happen. Hearing this, An immediately broke his musical instrument because he secretly likes the queen. Meanwhile, Seolgi then explained the meaning of the word love to the king by showing it written on chocolate. The king realized that foreigners had their own alphabets, while his own country still relied on Chinese characters, which were extremely difficult. This made him feel that his nation was far behind, with very few educated people. As a result, he decided that he would create a unique alphabet for his country. Seolgi suddenly remembered that the very alphabet the king was talking about was something she had studied in her books. She pulled out a note that contained the picture of the same king who had introduced that language in history, and the face on the note matched the king standing before her. Seolgi confidently told him that she believed he would be the one to introduce that language. The king replied that when the new alphabet was created, the very first name he would write would be hers. Seolgi then offered him chocolates, which he loved. He asked how so many things kept coming out of her bag, and Seolgi remembered how her mother had stuffed it with food on exam day. Thinking about this made Seolgi feel sad, realizing that her mother must be waiting for her. The next day, when Seolgi walked near the water, she noticed algae and suddenly remembered An's words about algae forming in stagnant water. This gave her an idea to fix her water timer. She told the king that An had helped her greatly. The timer Seolgi had built had algae clogging it, which was why the water was not flowing properly. She had now successfully built the machine the minister had demanded. As a result, the king ordered all charges against Seolgi to be dropped and granted An the 4th rank. The minister then suggested that Seolgi should also be given a rank in the palace. When someone questioned whose side he was on, he replied that he stood with the people of the country. Seolgi overheard all of this, but before she could react, the king arrived and took her away. In the next scene, the king resumed his studies, but this time Seolgi made a mistake. Instead of flicking her finger, the king kissed her forehead. Seolgi then tried to explain the solar system, but the king could not understand it at all, so she used a rubber band to demonstrate, turning astronomy into something that looked suspiciously like office stationary science. Later, when Seolgi returned home, she saw the queen sitting there and eating large amounts of food. The queen told her to stay quiet, after which Seolgi shared her noodles with her, which the queen loved. Seolgi remarked that the queen reminded her of her friend, and the queen replied that Seolgi did not feel like a stranger either. She then revealed that she knew Seolgi had come from the future. The queen asked for help, saying she wanted to make something the color of the sky but did not have the right shade. Seolgi took out her blade and cut the paper in such a way that the sky showed through it, revealing its color. The queen grew very fond of Seolgi and wanted to keep her close, but the queen's father was unhappy, as the queen showed no jealousy toward the woman staying near the king. The queen reported everything to the king's mother, and together they decided that Seolgi would remain in the palace. This decision was then conveyed to the king as well. So the next day, Seolgi was dressed elaborately. She had no idea what position she was about to be given, but when she learned she was being made a concubine, a woman who lives with a man but has lower status than his wife. Hearing this, she panicked and ran away. The king caught her and brought her back to the palace. Terrified, Seolgi explained that she had lived disguised as a boy, out of necessity. The king hugged her and revealed that he had known she was a girl all along, having heard the small child call her elder sister. He admitted that he never confronted her because he wanted her to stay with him. That night, the king asked Seolgi to remain with him forever and not leave even after the rain had come. Hearing this, Seolgi felt deeply sad. The king then lay down beside her and fell asleep there. The next day, An learns that Seolgi is also planning to create a separate calendar for her country. He advises her that becoming a concubine would actually be a good position compared to others, proving that even revolutionary ideas sometimes come with very traditional career advice. Seolgi kept thinking about one unsettling possibility. What if, because of her presence, the king had never gone on to create the Korean alphabet. To An, all of this sounded like a joke, but Seulgi snapped that he would never understand, because everything she was talking about belonged to the future. The king was planning to give Seulgi a hair clip and was secretly practicing how to present it to her, while Seulgi stood outside listening to everything. At that moment, the queen came to her and took her to meet the king's mother. As soon as Seulgi saw her face, she froze, because the queen mother looked exactly like her own mother. Overwhelmed with emotion, Seulgi began crying, leaving the king's mother confused about why this strange girl was suddenly in tears. After some time, the king noticed that Seulgi was wearing her school uniform. He told her that she looked better in her earlier clothes, but then realized she seemed deeply sad. He took her to a secluded place where it was revealed that he had already created the complete set of Korean alphabets for his country, so his people could communicate without difficulty. The king placed the hair clip on Seulgi's head and asked her to stay with him forever. Seulgi replied that she had to return to the future because her mother was waiting for her there. The king suggested that she could meet her mother and then come back, but Seulgi questioned how long she could keep running like this. When the king asked what he meant to her, she answered that he was a dream. Seulgi removed the clip and handed it back to him. The king ordered her to stay, then softened his tone and begged her to remain, but Seulgi apologized and said she had to leave. The king threw the clip away and walked off. Seulgi reflected that the man she had always dreamed of was exactly like the king. Suddenly, she was attacked and stabbed with a sword. It was later revealed that the minister had orchestrated everything. When the queen learned the truth, she was devastated because she had wanted Seulgi as a friend. The place where Seulgi lay was set on fire so that the king would never be able to introduce the new language. At that moment, Seulgi still held the hair clip in her hand. The queen rushed to inform the king, and when he reached the site, guards blocked his way, forcing him to enter from the back. Inside, he rescued Seulgi but realized that as long as she stayed near him, she would always be in danger. All of his efforts felt shattered in an instant. The next day, the minister was just yapping that he had allowed all this to happen and deserved punishment. The king agreed and suddenly grabbed the minister's hand, revealing explosives strapped to it. Seulgi appeared holding a thick book. In truth, when she had been stabbed, the sword had pierced the book inside her bag, saving her life. She had also recognized the minister's voice and understood who was behind everything. The minister declared that he did not fear death, but if the alphabets were published, everyone would learn to read and communicate without needing scholars, making ministers like him useless. The king replied that he would introduce this writing system for his people so they could read and write freely. After this, everyone begged the king for forgiveness. It was now time for Seulgi to leave. She handed the king her book, which contained all the alphabets. The king was shocked because his original work had burned and he could not understand how Seulgi possessed it. Seulgi explained that because of his dream, people in the future could read and write, and these alphabets appeared in every child's books. Only then did the king truly believe that Seulgi was from the future. The king said his dream was for Seulgi to always stay with him, but she could not. She then noticed the eunuch who looked exactly like her teacher and realized he walked with the same limp. Before going back, Seulgi met An, who extended his hand toward her and asked for his house rent. When she offered her hand, he clarified that he wanted rent, not her hand, then admitted he was joking. Seulgi told An never to give up on music. He was stunned, unable to understand how she knew about his passion, as if she had read his future playlist in advance. When Seulgi left, An's younger brother showed her pouch, revealing that Seulgi had left behind many gold coins. Seulgi prepared to leave with the king, and they went to the beach together, spending their final moments happily. Soon, rain began to fall. The king did not want to let her go, but Seulgi had to leave. She returned to the present at the exact moment she had disappeared. The same child who used to call her elder sister stood there. Seulgi rushed to her classroom and noticed that the examiner looked exactly like the minister. She wrote her exam confidently and returned home, where she hugged her mother with pure happiness. Later, it was revealed that her father resembled the queen's father. In the next scene, Seulgi visited her friend, who showed her a comic based on the first king, the same king from Seulgi's past. Her friend mentioned that the king had more than 10 women and used to give oranges to the ones he liked, leaving Seulgi completely stunned. She then saw a singer on television who looked exactly like On. On her way home, Seulgi saw the pit again and stepped into it, but it was no longer a time travel portal. Rain began to fall, and someone approached holding an umbrella. It was a man who looked exactly like the king. He told her that they had met before. In a flashback, it was revealed that they had crossed paths on the bus when Seulgi was on her way to the exam. The king had been watching her continuously while Seulgi was absorbed in her book, accidentally leaving her umbrella behind, the same umbrella he returned to her now. And with this moment, the drama comes to an end. Did you guys notice something in the story that the king's name was missing? If you know which king of Joseon era is shown in the series, comment down below. And if you guys have any recommendations of which drama should we cover next, comment that too. And finally, the name of this Korean drama is Splash Splash Love.